I used to work the late shift at my job I took after college. I needed some quick money for bills, a car, and other expenses. I hated working the 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift, but hey, stocking shelves and mopping was easy enough. Who was I to complain? After my shift, I'd come back to the small house I rented in the outskirts of town. Most nights, I'd fall asleep as soon as I got into bed, but some nights, I was struck with insomnia. Whether it was rooted from an overactive mind or just from exhaustion, it was a real pain. Luckily, I lived on a small hill, so I could look out my window to see the lights outside. I could see brake lights, street lights, and illuminated buildings up and down my street. This is what entertained me when I couldn't sleep. I would park my car in front of my garage door. Well, it wasn't a real garage. The door frame was just for show. Nevertheless, I always made sure my car was locked and safe before I went inside. One night, I was cursed with insomnia again, so I got up and drew back the curtains, and got a good look at the lights outside. Red brake lights danced in the darkness before me. Dull yellows shone down on the streets, and cars passed by occasionally. Instinctively, I checked my car while I was at the window, and my heart sank. Standing at my car, peering through the driver's side window, was a man in his late 40s to early 50s. He had graying black hair and wore a brown trench coat. His hands were cupped over his forehead so he could get a better look inside my car. I silently panicked. What is this guy gonna do? I thought. This guy's going to break into my car! I continued to watch the man for a few minutes, though it felt so much longer. I was frozen in fear, wanting to act, but my body refused. Finally, the man in the brown coat peeled away from my car, placed his hands at his sides, and walked away. I ran outside and looked my car over. The doors were locked. The windows were intact. Nothing was out of order. The driver's side was now musty and reeked of cigarettes. As I walked inside, fear left me, and I began to think rationally. He was probably drunk, I said to myself as I locked the front door. Since no harm was done to my car, or my house, I shrugged it off as a story to laugh at with my friends. I closed the curtains and went back to bed. The next night, I came home at 11:15, exhausted as usual. I checked my car and went inside. I was so tired I didn't shower. I fell asleep almost at once. At 2:45, I woke up, my body refusing to fall back asleep. Well, damn, I mumbled to myself as I stood up and scratched my head. Again, I looked outside to be entertained by the outside light show. Instead of watching the lights, my eyes slid towards my car. I looked, only to see the man in the brown coat at my car again. This time, I ruled out that he was drunk. Something wasn't right. I bolted to the front door, swung it open, and screamed, "Touch my car and I'll call the police!" To my confusion, the man was already gone. I cocked my head and slowly closed the door, flipping the deadbolt to lock it. I must be imagining this whole thing, I whispered. All those late nights were finally getting to me, it seemed. On my drive home the next night, I hoped to find the man again, to truly see if he was simply a figment of my imagination. Around 3 o'clock, I woke up and immediately peered through the curtains. Why did I always catch him mid-act? Tonight, I made sure I'd catch him. After pounding on the window to get his attention, I ran to the front door. I saw him stepping away from my car as I opened the door. "Hey!" I shouted. "I'm calling the police next time you touch my damn car!" The man's eyes met mine. He wasn't afraid at all. He lifted his hands to show empty palms. The man in the brown coat smirked a hellish grin I'll never forget. He backed away from my car and disappeared into the darkness. If I wasn't frightened before, I was terrified now. I crawled into bed and stared at the ceiling for the remainder of the night, wondering what I had just done. The man in the brown coat wasn't at my car the next night. When I looked through my window, all I saw were dancing lights and condensation. An immense sense of relief washed over me. I wanted to enjoy the beauty of the lights without condensation in the way, so I quietly walked over to the front door, just to peek through. Instinctively, or perhaps from a sixth sense moment, I looked into the peephole before opening the door. I became physically nauseous. I stood there, ice-cold fear running through my veins. The man in the brown trench coat was there, at my door, looking inside. He didn't have to cup his hands anymore, and he wore that sickening grin all night